I'm really torn on the genre of asymmetrical horror. Like, I love horror games, and I love some multiplayer games, sure. Mixed together? Not sure. When I was first introduced to Dead by Daylight, it was presented to me as a super cool new horror game that I would totally be interested in. And you know what? I hated it. I absolutely hated it. To some extent, I still hate it. I appreciate what they're trying to do, and I appreciate that they're trying to build lore around the fan base and what they want, or so it seems, but I don't understand it. It's a competitive game with a horror skin. It's not scary. Why am I always fixing generators? Who is the spider god? Why does Pinhead exist in the same universe as Leatherface and Ghostface and Pyramid Head? I know there's a patched-in lore explanation for all of this. Believe me, I've looked into it, but I just don't like it. It does nothing for me. And you know what? That's fine. The game isn't for me. And for what it's worth, when I do play it with friends, I do have a pretty good time. I've also played a lot of other games on the market in this genre. Friday the 13th, for instance. I was very close to the development of that game. I got to know the team well. They reached out to me for some unknown reason. And I did a lot of closed-door testing of the game throughout its creation. And when it came out, I played quite a bit of it. But I found that while I enjoyed Friday the 13th for its direct ability to help me essentially live within the confines of the Jason Voorhees universe. Quick side note, I'm not entirely sure why anybody would want to live in the Jason Voorhees universe, but I guess what I'm saying is it's kind of like watching a slasher movie with your friends, except you just get to play inside of one. I digress, though. The format of asymmetrical horror only goes so far with me. I'm a single-player person at heart, and you know what? That's okay. I've also played games like Last Year, The Nightmare, Secret Neighbor, and Deceit, all games that I enjoy, but for a short period of time. And there are a few on the horizon that I'm interested in seeing, albeit with the same level of enthusiasm. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Prop Night, VHS, just to name a few. I seem to favor the ones that are based on movie franchises because those are more interesting to me. Although, I find that if the world building has some thought put into it, then I'm on board either way. This honestly makes what Evil Dead the game has to offer a very compelling entry into this genre. And honestly, after my time spent with it the other night, one of my favorite entries, but not just for asymmetrical horror, which I've already stated my case on, but for games adapted from a cinematic universe, which, like, I know that's a pretty bold claim. Evil Dead the game is, on its surface, basically another asymmetrical horror. There's not too much more beyond that, although what I think makes it a bit more special is that it has some variety and options for playing it. There's your standard PvP 4v1 format, where you can play as either one of the 4 survivors, each with different classes, or one of the demons from the Evil Dead universe. You can even play as 4 Ashes fighting against an evil Ash, which is just peak Evil Dead if you ask me. But there's also a pretty well fleshed out PvE option where you can play either with a full team of AI versus an AI host of demons, or with a full team of friends versus an AI host of demons. And there's also a full single-player PvE missions mode, where you can go through one of 5 different story-based challenges and unlock different characters, outfits, bonus content, and a lot more. I'm personally hoping for more fleshed-out content in that area, recreate more areas from the iconic series in short form for players to live out. Friday the 13th did this with single-player Jason challenges, and I loved it. More of this in these kinds of games, please. It adds so much versatility to the play, it gives someone like me more of a reason to want to dive into those types of games. Plus, the more you get comfortable with a game in this regard, the more comfortable you get with the idea of playing it like it was intended to be played. But I digress. Gameplay for a standard match reminded me of Hunt Showdown. You have an objective. It's always the same objective too, to banish the evil by finding 3 parts of a map that lead you to pages of a book and a dagger. When you find all these items, you locate the evil and you banish it in 2 parts. First, with a multi-phase battle against Kandarian cultists, and finally, by protecting the Necronomicon from waves of enemies for a specific amount of time. Maps are huge and, while not procedurally generated, offer some variance by way of items being spread out, not always in the same place. Furthermore, as you're going through these steps, a wave counter is presented at the bottom of the screen that advances over the course of what I want to say is around 30 minutes, which is the standard time for a match. Your goal is to basically complete the entire run of tasks in as little time as possible, because the more that wave counter ticks up, the more enemies will come after you, and the more difficult they are going to become. And that is to say, whether or not the enemy controller is an AI or human being, the more time they have to collect experience and power, the more formidable they're going to become. You, of course, are also collecting power and experience along the way, making you just as formidable as time goes on, while also battling a number of environmental things like the darkness, which has a sanity meter mechanic that, if left unattended, will render you possessed and a danger to your teammates. But also, in the final stages of the banishment, a battle royale style enclosing ring of evil is introduced to keep you from straying too far from the main objective. And there are also jump scares, which, I know, boo, but also, they're so well used that I can't even be mad. And honestly, it's just a good time. I've yet to try the actual PvP mode of the game, but I played a healthy dose of the PvE AI matches with a group of friends and had a total blast. I did the tutorials as well, including the demon, and in doing that, I could see how much fun playing as the enemy will be. I could see the typical problems I have with asymmetrical horror becoming an issue the more time I spent with Evil Dead, in that, for my own personal tastes, the same gameplay loop over and over and over again will get boring to me after a certain amount of time, but the session we played the other night held my attention for around 8 hours, which is pretty strong. I credit that to multiple sources. First off, new game hype. Second, good company. Third, the different modes that I could explore and try out. But most importantly, and what I think will keep me coming back to Evil Dead the game, is the dedication to detail that Evil Dead the game exercises when it comes to the source material. The developers clearly love the movie series, and it definitely shows and translates well into that gameplay experience. I felt like I was actually part of an Evil Dead movie while playing the game, and that to me is really special. I felt that way with Friday the 13th, and I hope to feel that way with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And for what it's worth, I felt that love and attention to detail was so great that it was on par with Alien Isolation, which to me is one of the greatest single-player horror experiences that we've had in, I don't know, ever. Again, big bold claims, but I mean them. Will Evil Dead stand the test of time? I don't know. I think there's always a market for this type of gameplay loop, as games like Dead by Daylight have proven time and time again. I'm sincerely hoping for more added content over time, including PvE single-player content, maps, variants and missions and quests, and more, because without it, I think the game will only go so far with a more casual audience. That includes myself. Like I've said many times, I love horror, but I need some fresh ideas, and that's where asymmetrical horror has to find ways to evolve, or I have to come to terms with just not being entirely into it. In the case of Evil Dead the game, however, I'm already looking forward to my next excursion into the depths of the haunted forests with my friends. Evil Dead the game is available on PC through the Epic Games Store, as well as on PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and the Series X and S, and is coming soon to Nintendo Switch. Also, the game is playable cross-platform with your friends on any of these. Groovy.